Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and SmackDown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. This week both Raw and SmackDown came from Manchester in the UK, so there were some big time differences between when the show happened in the UK and when it was broadcast on television in the United States. Thanks for all the spoilers, Planet Earth. Raw opens up with Miz TV, Curtis Axel sporting a big old neck brace as a result of last week's beatdown from Braun Strowman. The Miz cuts a promo on Baron Corbin, his opponent for Survivor Series, and brings out Kurt Angle as his guest for Miz TV. The Miz runs down some of the stuff that's gone on Raw in the last few weeks under Kurt's watch, the transgressions, the shortcomings on Raw's side. And he keeps bringing up the fact that, Kurt Angle set up Daniel Bryan to be attacked last week. And that narrative carries over on SmackDown this week as well. They're really hyping this up, and the fact that Kurt's denying it so much, it makes you think, like, God, they're building this so much as far as a he said, she said thing, or like accusations and denials. Is this particular moment of Daniel Bryan getting beat up by Kane, is this going to lead to some other big blow-off or some big reveal in the future? The segment ends when Angle announces he made a match for later tonight between The Miz and Braun Strowman, and I love The Miz's cowardly chicken shit heel mannerisms here, is begging and is pleading with Angle not to let the match go on. I love Miz's character. He's a great heel. And speaking of great heels, our first match of the night is a guitar on a pole match as Elias takes on Jason Jordan. I love how the internet collectively groaned when this match was announced, like, oh God, a pole match. I get why some people are upset about it because, Vince Russo, obviously, one of his trademarks in WCW was really overdoing the pole match and kind of ruining it for people. But I even said this in my Worst Gimmicks Countdown way back that on the surface, the pole match itself is fine. I think historically it's been used to pretty good effect. It hasn't always been a great match, but it can be a good dramatic match. But the fact, I think that my issue with it was using it too much and having too ridiculous of items hanging from the top, like, Viagra on a pole or Judy Bagwell on a forklift or the pinata and stuff like that. Cole said something on commentary that I originally misheard. I thought he had said that this was the first pole match in general on WWE TV in the last 20 years or so, which is clearly incorrect. I mean, even earlier this year, you had Kendo Stick in a pole match at Extreme Rules, but then I realized later he said the first guitar on a pole match in almost 20 years, which makes more sense because after Jeff Jarrett left in '99, there hasn't been a whole lot of opportunity for a guitar on a pole match. No one really had that kind of gimmick. Jason Jordan wins after clocking Elias in the back with a guitar. Very meh match. Again, the pole match can either be good and dramatic or can be boring and flat and crappy, and this was kind of somewhere in between. Asuka continuing her reign of destruction against female wrestlers named Stacy. Last week it was Stacy Cullen. This week it's Stacy Coates. After her squash match here, Alicia Fox gets on the screen and announces that Asuka will be the newest member of Team Raw for the Women's Survivor Series match, which great way to immediately relegate Asuka to being just another one of the ladies on the show. Like, just for being, for coming into this big fanfare and big hype about Asuka and all she did at NXT, and now she's just, one of the ladies. It just seems very reminiscent of when Shinsuke Nakamura debuted on SmackDown to this big fanfare at Backlash. Then the next show was Money in the Bank, and he was just right in this multi-man thing and didn't get a chance to grow and develop as a singles person. I think with Asuka, you need that kind of thing as well. And right now, again, I'm not saying the sky's falling yet, but it's not a great start. In a follow-up from last week, Samoa Joe is scheduled to face Titus O'Neil in singles action. That match never actually happens because Samoa Joe jumps Titus O'Neil from behind on the ramp, and so he issues a challenge to anybody else, and Finn Balor answers it. He's the extraordinary man who answers extraordinary challenges. Of course, these two had an amazing rivalry in NXT last year. Lots of good elements from those matches. You could see a lot of good chemistry in this one on Monday night. Unfortunately, the match ends in a double countout. Kind of disappointing, but it does open the door for something down the line with more build and more drama to it instead of this kind of like impromptu open challenge. They keep brawling on the outside, then Kurt Angle comes out and says, I like that competitive spirit. You're both going to be on my team, which sounds like a really wise decision. I don't think that's ever going to backfire at all. Then after that, they go backstage to seeing Kurt Angle talking with his son, Jason Jordan, and he says that, Jason, you're going to be the fifth man on Team Raw for Survivor Series. The crowd goes kind of mild. I actually read somewhere they may have sweetened the sound. They may have added some crowd noise for that announcement. It's like, it's disappointing because, Jordan obviously hasn't reached his full potential and this gimmick kind of sucks. But really, if you just look at the rest of the roster, there aren't a whole lot of people who aren't champions and who aren't members of the Shield who I think would be a better fit for the fifth man. Maybe Matt Hardy, but I think Jordan, storyline wise and where he is in his position, makes more sense. We get a women's tag team match, Nia Jax and Alicia Fox taking on Sasha Banks and Bayley. They had to go across the Atlantic to find a crowd that reacts favorably strongly toward Bayley anymore. A very weird order of entrances for this match too, by the way. It was Nia Jax coming out first, then Banks, then Bayley, then Alicia Fox. It was A, B, B, A. Very weird order. The match ends when the faces win after Sasha makes Alicia, the captain of Team Raw, tap out to the Banks statement. I get the idea of making Banks and Bayley look strong to try and get on Team Raw, but why do it at the expense of your team captain? I mean, obviously it's a comedy gimmick she's doing here, but it's like, it just kind of ruins the credibility of your own team if the team captain gets beat so handily. She does get on the mic after Alicia does, after the match, and says that Sasha is now a part of Team Raw, but she fabs Bayley. I don't know if that was an error or if that was something they're going to build toward next week as to why Bayley got shunned or what. We have Braun Strowman and The Miz in singles non-title action. Again, like the women's tag team match, but for different reasons. Very curious and confusing production choices in what they do here, because they replayed the opening package from the top of the show, and then during the intros, they immediately show highlights from the end of last week's Raw when Braun comes out of the garbage truck and beats the Miztourage, which they included in the opening package they just replayed. Don't know why they need to be so redundant. Anyway, the match is just Strowman tossing the Miz around like he does. Then the Miztourage gets involved. Bo's jaw gets disintegrated with a huge punch by Strowman on the outside. Then Strowman tosses Curtis Axel into the barricade. And all I could think about it was, remember how sickening it looked when Shane Douglas grabbed Pitbull Gary Wolf by like the neck halo and jerked him around on ECW? And then you have Braun Strowman grabbing Curtis Axel, who's wearing a neck brace, and like you toss him in the barricade. People are like, wee, yay, it's fun. Then Kane and his invisible pyro show up. He and Strowman brawl for a bit, and Kane's just no-selling Strowman's offense. And then the Miz and the Miztourage come and jump Strowman. After the match has been thrown out, by the way, Strowman fights them off. He hits Miz with a running power slam, and he stands tall, and that's pretty much the end of it, which I thought was kind of a disappointing way to end this thing, because I don't think you needed a non-finish in this, but you didn't need a DQ finish. Miz could have taken the loss. It's non-title. He really doesn't lose all that often, so it's not going to hurt him if he loses. I think if you're trying to push Braun Strowman as this unbelievable badass, you've got to have him win. And he's just come back after being crushed by the truck and everything, and he's showing his strength and his dominance. Have him fucking win a match. I gushed last week in Who Wore Better over how much overlapping and cross-threading there was for storylines and angles on Raw. This week was like way big step back from that, but this is probably the most double dipping you'll see all night. You'll see, Braun hates The Miz, Braun hates Kane. All three parties are involved somehow. Is this the blow off to the Braun Miz thing? Is Braun just going to focus exclusively on Kane from here on? Are we never going to see Braun and Miz in singles competition again? Time will tell, but I thought this is a very interesting kind of like intersection for all three guys. We get a backstage promo with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. They're talking about the bar. They're facing Cesaro and Sheamus later in the night for the Raw tag titles, and then they do the fist thing, and then they leave, and then Renee Young does the fist thing by herself. Oh, she wants to be a member of the Shield. Well, hey, get in line, sister, because there's a lot of people getting that chance. The Cruiserweight champion Enzo Amore comes out, and considering how the crowd's been reacting to things all night, I'm not entirely sure if the crowd was pro-Enzo or anti-Enzo here. Enzo cuts this long and winding drivel of a promo. It goes on for what feels like several acts about Kalisto and how short he is. Then Kalisto finally interrupts him, and I was wondering, like, did Kalisto's cue come late? Was Enzo just like stalling for time, trying to like get to some point and just waiting for the music to hit? If so, I think it's brilliant by Enzo, the fact he was able to keep going for as long as he was. Great improv skills if that was the case. Otherwise, it's bad writing to go that long. So then Kalisto comes out and he just like pulls up a chair at ringside. Then you hear Pete Dunne's music play, which was awesome. Then out comes Kurt Angle, and then he introduces Pete Dunne, who comes out. Again, weird, questionable production choices throughout the whole night, like the weird order of the women's tag match, then the redundancy of the hype packages in the Strowman Miz thing. Now this weird order where you kind of like take the piss out of Pete Dunne's Raw debut, which was awesome, with Kurt Angle coming out there and then introducing him while his music is playing. Dunne, who of course is the UK champion, has a non-title match with Enzo here. At one point, Enzo goes for the dirty pin with his feet on the ropes, but Kalisto prevents Enzo from cheating to win. Dunne hits the bitter end on Enzo to win the match. I thought it was a really cool debut for him. Cool to see Dunne, who was one of my favorites in the UK tournament, and of course had that really brilliant match of the year candidate earlier this year with Tyler Bate for the UK championship, making his Raw debut. I know the UK people showed up on 205 Live this week. I don't know where the UK guys are going to go from here. Is Pete Dunne going to be more of a regular on Raw now, or is it just kind of a one-time thing because they were in Manchester? I don't know, but I do definitely want to see more of Pete Dunne, especially Pete Dunne, on the main roster. Backstage, Alexa Bliss cuts a promo and she asks Charlie, what's 2 + 2? And Charlie goes, 4? And Alexa goes, no, silly, it's 1, as in I'm the one and only goddess. Alexa, that's just bad math. The Raw Tag Title match is the main event as Rollins and Ambrose defend against Cesaro and Sheamus. I've said enough, I've gushed enough about these 4 over the last couple of months and how well they work together, but every time I see them wrestle, they always do like one little thing that always catches my eye, really impresses me. Like, for example, I love this like really cool save by Cesaro where he runs into the ring and he just bowls over Ambrose, who falls into Seth Rollins as he's pinning Sheamus to break up the pinfall. It's a really subtle thing, but I just thought that was kind of a cool like desperation move. You don't see a save like that for a pinfall done that way exactly. Very good match. Then near the end, the New Day from SmackDown interrupt. They come down through the crowd and they cut this very long promo right in the middle of this match. It's like the ball is still in play. The match does not end at this point. It's still going on technically. Kurt Angle, you see backstage rallying the troops. They're all going to storm around the ring. They're protecting the ring. They don't want another siege to happen. But in the confusion, the New Day leave as the Raw guys chase them up the stairs. And then Bro kick to Seth Rollins and match is over. The Bar are once again the Raw Tag Team Champions. So I thought this match was really well done. You know, the first 75% of it was all just really competitive, athletic stuff. Then the last 25% of it was this conflict from SmackDown and Raw rearing its ugly head into the thing and just interrupting proceedings. It's costing the match at the end. It's not really hurting the Shield at all. It's not hurting Rollins and Ambrose to be distracted by all this because everyone's distracted really, and Sheamus and Cesaro are just opportunists. This I think is obviously going to lead to New Day versus the Shield at Survivor Series. They're announced that Roman Reigns is going to come back. The Shield is reuniting once again next week on Raw on the go-home week. So logic would tell me that's what the match they're going to have at Survivor Series, which I can't wait for because I love all 6 of these workers. I think they're going to have a hell of a match. SmackDown begins with Shane McMahon coming out and welcoming the New Day, giving them props for what they did the night before on Monday Night Raw, and they're getting their dance groove on. Then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn interrupt to air out their grievances. Shane makes a match right then and there for Sami versus Kofi Kingston, and I'm paraphrasing there because that whole thing I just said, the 2 or 3 sentences, was 20 minutes. It took 20 minutes for these guys to get their first wrestling match. And you know, on a 3-hour show like Raw, that can be a little more forgiven, but for a 2-hour show, I think that's kind of unacceptable. Anyway, the match ends, it's a solid match. The match ends when Kofi does a twisting cross body off the top onto Sami to win the match. And then like right after he wins, Kevin Owens runs into shit cans. Kofi, the heels powder out, and the New Day is victorious here. Continues the tension between Kevin Owens and Sami and their beef with Shane McMahon, which, as I keep saying, it will impact the Raw vs. SmackDown Survivor Series men's match. You can bank on that one. But yeah, again, the time it took for them to get from like point A, the start of the show, to this match, I think was gratuitously long. Rusev taking on Randy Orton here. If Rusev wins, he will join Team SmackDown at Survivor Series. He was supposed to face AJ Styles in this match, but obviously plans changed when AJ moved up the championship match later in the night. The fans in Manchester are digging the Rusev Day thing that Aiden English is doing. The Rusev Day is getting over, and if you don't believe me, ask this guy on Twitter. There are just some things that are guarantees in life. The sun rises in the east, people complain on Twitter, and Randy Orton beats Rusev with an RKO. I'm guessing we're going to wait until go-home week to determine who the 5th man on Team SmackDown will be now. Becky Lynch versus James Ellsworth in the first intergender match in Christ. I have no idea how long it's been since the last time the company's done an intergender match. I read somewhere, this is by no means official, I think the last time it was like Natalya taking on El Torito, and I don't even know if that's real or not, to be honest, but I believe it. But yeah, this is an intergender match. It's, you know, played up for laughs, really. Of course, Ellsworth was talking smack online to Becky Lynch in the days before this. This match was made here, and so you have the other women of SmackDown surrounding the ring in, I guess, a show of solidarity, yay, girl power. There's not a punch thrown in this entire match. It's all just like holds and like goofy, like roly-poly spots where Becky Lynch has got, you know, James rolled up and she's getting him dizzy and stuff, airplane spins. It's kind of goofy, but it's kind of a prototypical thing as a way to prove that intergender matches don't always have to be, you know, they don't have to be ultra violent. They don't have to be cringeworthy. That's the thing about the women's revolution right now in WWE. I feel like we're stuck in the second wave of the revolution. The first wave was bringing women onto the roster and making them relevant and making them competitive and not just eye candy. They accomplished that a couple of years ago. The second wave was like them being more involved in high profile matches and storylines and main events and it being just a normal thing and normalizing it. That's the second wave. The third wave which this was kind of like the first chipping away to get to that. The third wave, which we haven't gotten to yet, is full-on intergender competition. Men fighting women and it not being a huge deal and being competitive. And I think as goofy as this match was, this was proof that you could do that and make it not like ultra violent. You don't have to punch a woman in the face and people aren't going to complain about that stuff. I don't think anyone's going to complain that James Ellsworth and Becky Lynch were having this match. The thing ends when James Ellsworth's trying to make nice, trying to have a truce with Becky Lynch here, but she catches him to disarm her, or perhaps it's called the disarm him in tonight's case, makes him tap out, and she wins the match, and yay Becky Lynch. Then Carmella kicks Ellsworth's chin off, if he had a chin left, and she kind of leaves in the dust. So is this alliance between she and Ellsworth finally done? Time will tell. SmackDown tag titles on the line as the Usos defend against Benjables. The match doesn't really get out of the gate after commercial break when Chad chop blocks Jey Uso on the outside when the referee is distracted, and it was a very brutal looking maneuver and a brutal looking sell by Jey. Not entirely sure if he's legit hurt there. There seems to be some conflicting, unconfirmed reports about the extent of any kind of injury he may have sustained there, but it is definitely a callback to when the Usos did the same thing to Gable last year on SmackDown when they were in the tag title tournament. So Jey is counted out, and Benjables wins by countout, but the Usos retain the championship. So the question is, are they turning Benjables heel here? Logic would dictate that they might be doing that because, of course, a few weeks ago when they won the number one contendership, they won that match using very shades of gray, quasi-heelish ways to win that match. And there's more of the same here by Chad, more of that vicious side where it's like, is he booked to be dumb or is there something more to it? What are they going to build here? Is the tension between Benjables too much right out of the gate? Where are they going to go with this? Is just Chad going to turn heel and Sheldon goes on his own as a singles guy? I mean, I'm curious to see where this goes. They announced that next week the U.S. and women's titles will be on the line. Baron Corbin will defend against Sin Cara and Natalya will defend against Charlotte. Now, maybe it's because they're just trying to keep things interesting in the build to Survivor Series, but between this week on Raw and SmackDown and next week on SmackDown, they're doing a lot of title matches on television. I love that. I love seeing title matches on television because my biggest thing, the one thing I've always preached on this channel, the thing that I think makes the shows more compelling to watch is the level of unpredictability. Is the champion going to walk away this week? Still the champion? You got to find out. You got to watch and find out. You don't have to wait until the pay-per-view to see what's going to happen, and where things might be more predictable that way. I do like seeing more title matches on television. Please, let's have some more of that after Survivor Series. Main event time, the WWE Championship match as Jinder Mahal defends against AJ Styles in a match that was made last week. Of course, was building in the previous weeks when AJ was beating up Samir and Sunil in singles action and all that stuff. The Singh brothers open up by mocking Paul Heyman's delivery when he's introducing Brock Lesnar when they introduced Jinder at the top of the show. Styles is selling the hell out of Jinder's strength here. Obviously, there's a size and a strength difference, and Styles is just bumping his ass off for Jinder Mahal here. Styles beats the hell out of the Singhs when they interject and pull Jinder out of the ring. Then Jinder catches the phenomenal forearm attempt into the Colossus, but AJ gets the foot on the ropes. The crowd is just electric for this. Styles does come back, actually hits the phenomenal forearm onto Mahal to win, clean as a whistle, and bam, he's your new WWE champion. The first time the championship has changed hands outside of North America, the first time the belt has changed hands on SmackDown since 2003, the first time on television since 2015. The end of year Raw when Roman Reigns beat Sheamus. So yeah, not very often the WWE Championship changes hands on television, and of course first time outside of America and Canada. So really crazy stuff here to see this moment. And all I could think of is like, well, wait a minute, didn't they just spend all this time building up this war of words between Jinder and Heyman / Lesnar? I thought that was very interesting. They even had the intro here where the Singhs are taking the piss out of Paul Heyman. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to like totally swerve us by having AJ win the belt, which by the way I'm 100% for. I'm done with the Jinder experiment. I know early on I was a hardcore Jinder defender, but by now I'm kind of done with it. So the long national nightmare is finally over. Jinder's no longer the champion. Makes you wonder, are they going to pull a bait and switch and change the belts again next week, like just to go back to that narrative of Jinder and Lesnar? Like, I don't want to be that pessimistic, but I think God, it might happen. Who knows? But I'm still excited about AJ winning. I think it's an awesome moment. God, you thought 2016 was a good year for AJ in WWE. I think 2017 is ranking pretty much up there. He won the U.S. title a couple of times and once in Madison Square Garden at the house show. and then he wins the title again here on SmackDown. It's like, I think it's been a great year for him here too. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. And this week, I have to go with Team Blue. SmackDown wins, in my opinion, this week. It's really hard to top what happened in the main event on Tuesday night with AJ winning the WWE Championship against Jinder Mahal. Really cool moment. Great way to end the show. I also thought Lynch and Ellsworth, even though it was goofy, it was very entertaining and it was very refreshing to see intergender wrestling again. I mean, some people are against, my friend Jay Biggs, very much against intergender wrestling, so he and I will be disagreeing on this, but I thought that was just, it was a great nice change of pace, very refreshing to see that match. The only thing I didn't like about SmackDown was this week was just the fact that opening promo, like I said, went way too freaking long, way too bloody long. As long as we're in the UK, let's do some UK speak. Way too bloody long. As far as Raw goes, I think Raw had some strong moments too, but to me it was just a huge step back from the previous week when it was so, just the writing was just so good and all the overlapping and all the layers. I love that stuff. This week felt more like a step back into the status quo is what it usually does. I liked Joe and Finn except for the finish. I liked Pete Dunne's debut. I loved the tag title match and all the crazy stuff that happened there. Didn't care for the guitar and a pole match. The finish of Strowman and Miz was just, again, I don't think Miz needed to be protected as much as he was there. And again, I think just there's so many wonky production choices, botches, what have you. I just thought that kind of like took me out of it in a lot of different in a lot of different moments. So yeah, SmackDown wins this week. Hard to beat the way SmackDown ended. That alone I think makes SmackDown the better show in my opinion. Let me know what you guys thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comment section below, and vote for which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Wregret, buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com, and check out Patreon.com/WrestlingWithWregret for exclusive perks and some bonus content. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.